Hello, I'm Katie Tupling, and this is my YouTube channel where everything on here is pretty much my own opinion. And I want to begin this thought about lockdown and the implications for shielding households with a hat tip and a thank you to the lovely Emma Major, who is a friend and a colleague, a disability activist, and all round godly and good person. It was a Facebook post that made me think, actually, yes, and I'm better at talking than I am at writing, although some may dispute either. See, what Emma wrote was this, or this is my interpretation of what Emma wrote in the light and through the lens of my own experience. At the beginning of lockdown in March of 2020, in case we're still watching this in 4 years' time and still wearing face masks and we're on Dave, but at the beginning of March or the middle of March, we were told categorically as a country that COVID was nasty and unpredictable and virulent in the literal sense of the word virus. It would get everywhere, it would touch everyone. And if you were in the clinically vulnerable category, then you should stay indoors. The only safe place you have is in your house. And ideally, the only safe place you have where you can guarantee you're not going to die or be touched by the stuff is in your room, in your bedroom. If you share it, stop sharing. If you're in a shared accommodation, stop sharing. If you share a kitchen or a bathroom, stop sharing. And if you cannot completely isolate yourself within the house where you live, then you have to start investing in shares in antibacterial. Clean everything. Don't go near anyone. It was very, very clear. They had a list of the extremely vulnerable people clinically. Please note, clinically vulnerable to COVID, not vulnerable in life in general, although the two became synonymous in many people's mind's eye. You're vulnerable to COVID, you're vulnerable full stop, and therefore possibly expendable. Thank you very much. And every household had to learn quickly the conversation which goes, are you on that list of extremely clinically vulnerable people to COVID? In which case, what do we as a household do? Now, the conversation amongst single occupancy of households may have been different. You may have had a different conversation with yourself on this point. I'm talking through the lens of a household, of a man who is clinically extremely vulnerable to COVID, having had a kidney transplant in 2017. Me, who was on the list originally and then off the list because cerebral palsy people were treated with one brushstroke. You're all vulnerable. No, some more vulnerable than others, thank you. I'm actually quite fit and healthy. I came off the list fairly quickly. And our then 9-year-old son, who is fit as a flea, has no underlying health conditions that might make him more vulnerable, and is that magic age under 11. So, of course, the husband triggered every single red flag. And from the minute it all started, that conversation in our household was, okay, we have to protect you, my husband, because if this thing gets to you, it could be game over. I don't want to lose a husband and a friend. I don't want our son to lose his dad and the whole of life to turn around on a sixpence because we weren't careful enough and others took a risk that we weren't prepared to take. So as a household, our first conversation was, when do we start self-isolating ahead of government advice, which proved to be very, very wise and ahead of the game? And then who actually is the one who shields, or do we do it as a household? We had a conversation as a household, we shielded as a household, and we have been meticulous for, at the time of recording this, about 18 or 19 weeks, almost without fail. And when we had to go out because of hospital appointments for my husband, he was isolating to the nth degree. We could guarantee that we did not have COVID. And for 18 weeks, we have been doing this meticulously and at some cost to mental health, but to make sure that he stays alive. The first 3 or 4 weeks weren't too bad because, like everybody else, we thought it'll be over and done and dusted by June. And you think we can do it in 3 or 4 weeks. And then 3 weeks in, you realise that actually this is going to be a longer term thing. But it's okay, we're all in it together. As long as we stay inside our house and control any kind of contact beyond our four walls, we should be okay. Out there is dangerous and deathly. In here is safe and healthy. And you get to the middle of lockdown, week 9, week 10, week 11, and you realise that the rest of the country are just starting to go out again and test the waters. But you know it's dangerous and you have to stay in. And we became, and still are, institutionalized. You hear about this in terms of hospitals and prisons and prisoners of war, and you think, wow, that must be a terrible thing to have happen. And you suddenly realize it's happening to you. We became afraid of going out, not just risk averse to going out, but genuinely fearful. What if we have to go out there? Out there, the virus is waiting behind every street corner and street lamp to pounce and to kill. A little over the top, you might think, but that was the message we received and had to believe in order to stay safe. Otherwise, we'd have taken ridiculous risks and COVID would have said, thank you very much. That's my way in. Week 9, week 10, week 11 became really hard mentally. And now, week 16, 17, 18, 19, and who knows beyond, is nigh and impossible because suddenly, 1st of August, shielding's paused, which means every single legal framework and protective thing around shielding households and shielding people has gone. Shielding may have been paused, but COVID hasn't paused. COVID hasn't said, 1st of August, not a problem, I'll just take some time off, annual leave, I'm overdue anyway. COVID is still out there. It may not be as rampant as it was, but to be honest, no one quite knows what it's going to do next. Every single prediction has not come to fruition. Even the scientists are going, I generally thought that would happen, but it hasn't. I thought that wouldn't happen, but it has. We discovered over the 18 weeks more symptoms we didn't know about. People now reporting a lack of sense of smell at the beginning of the year, going, was it COVID? Having tests, yes, they've got antibodies. They had COVID and didn't know because they didn't have all the symptoms we thought that you had to have at the beginning of March. And they're going, no, we had a whole load more that you discovered in April, May, June. COVID is a sneaky little bugger that does not fit our expectations. It is morphing its way around the place, sneaking up and hiding away. And shielding households now in August going, what the hell happened to spring and early summer? I had no idea. And now having to reprogram themselves to go, so it is safer out there than it has been, but it's not as safe as it was in January, February, although apparently it wasn't that safe after all, but who knew? Is it safe or not? We're having to deprogram ourselves. Our child is now 10, deprogramming himself at the age of 10 that out there isn't actually that dangerous now, but it is. But we're still wearing masks and anti-bac, even though it's not that dangerous, but it is that dangerous. And you can go out, but you shouldn't go out. You can go to pubs, but don't mix with people, but you can't go to church. You can go to church, but you can't sing, but you can sing outside. It's just ridiculous. And you can't deprogram yourself to outside dangerous, inside safe if the messages of the outside are outside less dangerous, depending. Flip me, I'll just stay indoors. But we can't do that either because our mental health is shot to pieces. I am, self-admission, one of the strongest, most determined people I know. My mental health has been challenged over the years by loads of stuff. Do you know what? That's a whole other video. Not for now. But this has nearly finished me off. It has turned up the volume on every flaw I have in my personality, on every crack there might be in relationships, in marriage and in parenting. It has wheedled its way into every single bit of me that is not as good as it should be, and family life, and just being a grown-up. And it has pulled bits of us to bits. That's going to take some recovery time. Never mind bloody COVID. Sorry for the swear, but hey, I'm human. So what you need to know is when shielding households are holding back, are saying, I'd love to come to that thing that you're really carefully distancing, but I don't think I can. It's not because we don't trust you, or we don't trust what you're putting in place. We don't trust our common sense to know how to manage this. It's because we're bloody terrified of deprogramming ourselves from this narrative we've had to live with, because otherwise we wouldn't still be here. And the anxiety levels are through the roof. Even someone like me who doesn't do anxiety. My goodness, you have no idea. Go and read Emma Major's blog. I'll put a link to it underneath this YouTube comment. She does it better than I have, but this is the way I communicate. I do it on screen rather than typing. The shielding households are anxious. We're having to deprogram ourselves with no therapeutic help to do that at all. We're coming out into the open having been held captive for 18, 19 weeks, and there's no one there to tell us how to do this. And there's no assurance that if we do deprogram ourselves, you're right and it's safe. It just takes one mistake for us to have to go back into our shells and our prisons again in order to possibly keep ourselves safe when the second wave hits. So I guess what I'm saying is be patient, reach out to us, invite us to stuff, but don't expect us to come, because we may have everything in place, but the anxiety says, no, you can't go. And the anxiety pretty much always wins.